If you want to, or if you can, make sure to go and support me on my Ko-Fi page, TikTok, and on my itch.io page. Links are all in the description below. So, a while ago, I made a few videos explaining some components to you guys. First, I explained the main components of a PC, then I explained the motherboard, and then I explained the storage slash SSDs, and now I'm going on to the GPU. Now, I've got the three main parts of a GPU right here, and today I'm going to be explaining to you guys what these parts do and what their goal is each, and etc. and etc. So let's get started with the very first part, which is the motherboard of the GPU, or the main board of the GPU. Now, the main board of the GPU is the main part of the GPU where all the electronics are housed, from your power delivery, which on this GPU is right here, to your power connector, to the chip itself, to the VRAM, video RAM, to the ports. Literally almost everything for a GPU to work properly is seated on this mainboard, and without this mainboard there literally is no GPU. Now this is split up into a few parts. So you first got your video RAM chips, which are these chips right here. Now the amount of video RAM in a GPU really depends on which GPU it is. This is an RX 470, so it has 8 gigs, so each of these chips is 1 gigabyte each. You've also got the power connector as well, which it's not necessary for there to be a power connector. There are GPUs with different kinds of power connectors. You've got 8 pins, you've got 6 pins, you've got weird combinations like 8 pins plus 6 pins, but those are for more beefy or more hungry graphics cards. Some don't even have a power connector because they're just that energy efficient. Then you've got the power delivery, which are these right here. They are filled with capacitors, transistors, chips, which basically deliver power to the chipset. You've got your PCIe lane at the bottom, which is probably one of the most delicate parts of the entire GPU. And if one pin breaks or like a lot of static catches on this, it could basically kill your GPU and it won't work anymore. Then you got your ports right here. The ports really do depend on which GPU you bought. This is an RX 470 as already said, and it has 2 display ports, 2 HDMI ports, and 1 DVI port. Newer GPUs typically don't have DVI or VGA ports, but yeah, they mostly have HDMI and DVI, but it really does depend on the GPU. Now, the main manufacturers of GPUs are Intel, Nvidia, and AMD, with Nvidia and AMD being far ahead in the lead, and then Intel still catching up, but still being a very, very good producer. With that, I believe we are done with the main board, and we can go on to the next part, which is the cooling, or the fans. Now, the fans on GPU can be different, and the shroud design as well depends a lot on which GPU. The whole design, of course, differs from GPU to GPU, but also the amount of fans, the size of the fans, the diameter, the whole size of the fins and whatnot, all of that depend on the GPU itself. They differ from GPU to GPU. Some GPUs have only 1 fan, some GPUs have 2 fans, some GPUs have 3 fans. You've also got different kinds of cooling solutions. So this is your normal standard fan cooling solution. Then you've got a blower style cooling solution as well. And then you've also got passively cooled GPUs. I'll get more on that once I go on to the next and final part. But anyhow, speaking of the final part, this is the final part of the GPU, which is the heatsink. Now, the heatsink basically goes like this on top of the GPU, and then the cooler goes on top of the heatsink. And the main goal of the heatsink is to basically take the heat from the chipset and the VRMs and whatnot away from the graphics card, so that then the fans can blow cold air into the heatsink and cool the entire GPU. Now, the sizes and diameters and shapes and whatnot of these can be very different. They're very varying from GPU to GPU. But as you can see, this one at the bottom has a piece of copper right here at the chipset, so that the chipset can dissipate the heat or transfer the heat onto the heatsink as much as possible and as efficiently as possible. And then you've got these like ridges here, these spaces basically done so that the GPU cooling solution has as much ground coverage as possible so that it can take up as much heat as possible. That's mostly why you also see heat pipes on some GPU cooling solutions as well. And overall, yeah, now I did say that there were passively cooled GPUs. For example, the Palette Calm X that I reviewed a few months ago, I believe, and other GPUs as well, but they are very rare. And they are mostly not really used for gaming, or if they are, they are very power efficient so that they don't produce that much heat. And so with that, I have explained all three of the main components of a GPU. I hope this video helped you guys out, and I hope you guys learned something new from all of this.
Swag.